Good afternoon, everyone. It is Friday, April the 10th, 2020. It is currently 12:07 p.m. Central Time. And yes, this is part 2 in our discussion of COVID-19, churches, and Easter services. We are talking about what's going on in churches with churches during this crazy time. We're talking about a lot of different issues. I am not going to review everything I said in part 1. Part 1 was an hour and 30 minutes long. I think an hour and 30 minutes. No, I think it was an hour and 45 minutes long. Almost 2 hours. So I stopped that live broadcast to come back with part 2, and we're going to continue. So just if you're just tuning in right now and you missed part 1, you really should just go listen to part 1. All right, you really should. Then you'll have an idea what's going on. For those who heard part 1, we're going to pick up where we left off in part 1, and that's we're listening to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio. And he is really going in and trying to make some very important points. And I've tried to be as balanced as I can. Here is the issue, and I think it's Greenville, Mississippi. And the mayor of Greenville, Mississippi, I believe it's Greenville, Mississippi, he issued an order basically banning all religious services, either walk-in or drive-in church services where the cars pull in the parking lot and someone either stands in the parking lot and preaches or they preach inside and it's transmitted to your radio. I've given you my opinion on drive-in services. I think it just seems foolish, cheesy, crazy, doesn't make any sense. I am skeptical. I think it's cynical. I think it's more for money purposes because in all the videos I've seen of drive-in services, someone obviously walks around to all the cars and picks up and passes the offering plate. So I'm skeptical of the entire thing. However, the way the mayor of Mississippi handled it, he gave the order. This church went ahead and had a drive-in service. And then guess what happened? The cops come pouring into the parking lot. They went from car to car to car, tapped on the window. People rode down the window. They issued them a $500, I think, fine or ticket. And they, with the order they have to appear in court. Whole thing was crazy. It does appear that in Mississippi, the governor had given an exemption to religious institutions as being essential. So there's a conflict, it seems, between the governor and the mayor there in Greenville, Mississippi. I think the church could have done a lot of things to try to work around this, contacting the mayor's office, giving them the actual rule from the governor, saying, wait, you're violating that rule, contacting the governor's office. I think they could have done a press conference and say, hey, media, the mayor here is not being fair. Here are the rules. I think there's a lot of things they could have done. However, I think the mayor, I think this was crazy. I think to me, it seemed like the government wanted to get some extra tax revenue by going to a church parking lot and fining people $500 for being there while they sat in their car. And then by rolling down the window, filling out a ticket, handing them the ticket and having them use your PIN with no gloves and mask on was, to me, an absolutely, they weren't even following, the cops weren't even following the rules. So the whole thing seems crazy. It raises lots of issues. I talked about all those issues in part 1. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back. I've backed this up, the audio, about 6 seconds, 7 seconds. I have it's probably going to be starting like right in the middle of a sentence. But this will fit together with what we did in part 1. Again, you need part 1 to get all of my thoughts. If you're just tuning into part 2, please don't start emailing me and accusing me of things because you didn't hear all of my thoughts and comments in part 1, all right? So we're just going to jump right in. I don't have time to do any more review. I think there's lots of different, I've tried to be fair and see this from every point of view that I could think of. And hopefully you will find this to be beneficial. So we're backing up and here we go. Let's jump right in.
The church was complying with the CDC's guidelines for physical distancing, was complying with the Mississippi State Department of Health's guidelines for physical distancing. And it was the police that encroached upon that. Now, I can tell you, I know that a letter has been sent informing Mayor Eric Simmons of his erroneous ways. And I hope and pray that the mayor of Greenville, Mississippi recognizes, I made a boo-boo. And in light of the observation of the resurrection of the Messiah, you may want to back from preventing people from being able to have drive-in services. Because they are not violating Governor Tate Reeves' order. they are not violating anything, and your municipal prohibition of drive-in services is a rank and blatant violation of the U.S. Constitution, the Constitution of the state of Mississippi, as well as the very order you cite. I highlight.
Now, let me jump in here. Please note that church could have sent that letter to the mayor's office prior to conducting a drive-in service. This is the point I keep trying to make. Yes, sometimes you can be in the right, but you're in the right, and then you go about flaunting that you're in the right to make a point, just to try to make a point. Church is not the time to make a point. Church is where you're trying to conduct a service so that you're preaching, teaching people, worshiping God. It's not just a time to try to use it to make a point. You could have sent that letter saying, hey, you issued this order. You are in the wrong. Here is the governor. The order you cite is the governor's order. The governor's order calls religious services, religious institutions as being essential. We are exempt from the shelter-in-place order. Here are the things that we've put in place. This is how we're going to conduct our service. We are not in violation. So we ask you kindly to change your order that you've given us, Mayor. Fix it. Give the exemption that the governor has. If you do not, we will be contacting the governor's office with legal representation, and we will seek to have your order overturned and possibly have you removed from office as mayor. However you want to word it, you can be as direct as possible. But they could have done that without conducting the drive-in service, and then give them and say, we give you 30 days to comply. They could have done that, but they did not. Had the service. People get tickets for $500, have to appear in court. If they have to pay those fines, who's going to pay them? Well, the church should pay them, since they had everyone show up at their knowing they were violating a rule. That's the way. That's the timeline. Now, maybe the timeline is not maybe the church met first, then the order was presented. That's not the way it's been presented in this broadcast. It seems like the order was presented, the church met, then the church was fined. And now a letter is being sent. If the order was given first, don't do it. And then the church did it. And then the church got fined. Then the church sent the letter. Then the church. No, the order should have been issued. The church should have immediately sent a letter and then called a press conference. Contacted the local media and said, please come. We're going to speak on this and say, here is the rule. Here's what we're going to do. And then give the mayor the chance. But it seems like if they just met, then I believe the mayor is in the wrong. I believe that the cops, what they did was crazy and was way overblown. And if other if drive-in movie theaters are allowed to have drive-in movies, then a church should be able to do drive-in services, even though I think the drive-in services are crazy. That's okay. They should still be allowed to do it. Now, if you ban drive-in movie theaters, okay. Now, you see, but if there's an exemption for religious institutions, then you can't bind them unless you take away that exemption. So I'm trying to look at it from all different perspectives. What I'm just trying to show you is that sometimes the church can be 100% in the right and then just go so far in its way to try to prove it's right that it just makes you look like you're not being submissive to government, you're not being submissive to authority, and all the world sees is, what are those crazy Christians doing? All they see is that they think that those Christians are putting everyone at risk. They see them as the bad guy. And this is the time we don't want the world to see it. Like, if the world wants to see us as a bad guy, we want them to see us as a bad guy for the preaching of the cross, of preaching the biblical morality, not for doing something crazy to try to prove a political point in the midst of a pandemic. Does that make sense? I'm trying to be balanced here. They could have sent the letter first. Then if the mayor refused, and if the governor's office was ignoring them, and if the press conference didn't help, then go have a church service to show that you're violating the church's constitutional rights that is protected even in the order issued by the governor. Then go do that. I'm all for that. But there's a way to do it. That's all I'm saying. There's a way to do it. Right? I mean, you've probably at times had an issue with your teenager, and your teenager may have actually been in the right, but they went about it in the wrong way. Sometimes a teacher at school could clearly be in the wrong. The student is completely in the right, but the student goes about it in the wrong way, which then ultimately hurts the student's argument and the student's case. I think we've all done that ourselves. There's been times I was in the right at work, but I conducted it in the wrong way. There's been times I think I was in the right as a pastor, but I went about it in the wrong way. We've all been there. So I think we can all agree that is a problem to consider. Well, let's let them finish, because there's a lot of other issues that are getting ready to be brought up that we're going to have to talk about. There's a lot of issues we have to talk about here. So here we go.
The mayor of Greenville, Mississippi, but this is happening all over the country right now. I got a story from North Carolina where it's happening. I got a story from Baltimore where it's happening. And this was one of the things that I was concerned expressly about. That as churches make adjustments, that wicked people, some of them who are uninformed, but there are some who are expressly wicked who will look to take advantage of this moment to crush the church in our country.
Now, see, this is where I have a problem. Maybe I'm naive, but I don't perceive this. Again, if you listen to part 1, in 1918, during the Spanish flu, which killed millions and millions of people, churches were shut down. And in some cases, churches were shut down and saloons were allowed to remain open. That happened in Philadelphia. All right. So I want to make sure you understand. I don't believe that this is people sitting around going, oh, look, we've got a global pandemic on our hands. People are dying. Crush the church. This is the opportunity we have been waiting for. Let's go destroy the church. Yeah, demons arise. Come on. I think government officials sometimes do absolutely dumb things. Okay? Look, I've stated it again. Was one of our foundational principles that I gave in my introduction in part 1 was this. Listen, these restrictions have turned upside down every area of life. Restaurants, bars, rock concerts, rap concerts, music concerts that you would believe is ungodly have been banned. Strip clubs, all kinds of adult entertainment venues have been shut down. Movie theaters have been shut down. All kinds of things. This is not just, we are going to use this to crush the church. Now, yes, maybe that you've got a government official who in their minds, the church is not essential. They don't perceive it to be essential. And maybe they are treating the church at times in a way that's a little too far. And yes, if that occurs, the church has to think about how to handle it. And I believe there's a correct way to do so. Again, using legal, like if they're violating the very law that they're citing, we can point that out. That's easy to point out. If the mayor is violating a rule that the governor issued, then you go to the governor to deal with it. You can go to the media. There's lots of different things you can do. But I don't think this is like, we are here to crush the church. I think in many cases you have churches who are flaunting what they are doing, and they're almost begging for a confrontation. Let me give you an example. There's a pastor in Louisiana who continues to have church services. In fact, for Easter, I've got the news article right here. Let's just go to the news article. Give me 1 second. I got to pull up on my iPad. I think I may already have the article open. I've got 9,000 windows open here on my iPad. Yeah, here we go. Now, this is the headline. Now, clearly, the headline does not like Christianity, but you can understand why. Easter fool, that's what they call it, pastor who said his congregation would rather die than miss church to hold Easter service, are you ready for this? With 1,000 people. Now, come on. You're going to hold a service with 1,000 people. I watch NXT, professional wrestling, on Wednesday nights. They conduct their show in the WWE Performance Center or at Full Sail University. I don't even think the place where they conduct it even holds 1,000 people. They're not allowed to do that They're not allowed to do that. That's professional wrestling. They're not allowed to do that. Less than 1,000 people. Ring of Honor, an indie wrestling promotion that goes all over the country. I've been to their shows, and you have 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, 400, 600 people is a big crowd for an ROH show, especially now. I'm not going to get into all the wrestling reasons. They can't have shows, but this pastor, we're going to hold a service with 1,000 people, and they're flaunting it. In fact, I've watched this pastor. This is the pastor in Louisiana. I've seen some people defend this pastor, but I've watched all kinds of things from him. There he was at a church service, there live stream, so it's going to go out to the world to see, bragging that people had driven in from all kinds of different states to come to his church because they were looking for a place to worship. Now, let me make this clear. You're in Louisiana, one of the hot spots, and you're bragging on the internet where the media and everyone else can see that people are driving in from other states, coming there, and then are going to drive back to other states. When there are all kinds of states trying to limit traffic and who can go from which state to another state. No, this is a pastor flaunting it, bragging about it. That's not the way the church is to conduct itself. Let's read this story. So he's going to, for 1,000 people, Tony Spell of the Life Tabernacle Church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, has refused to stop his services amid the coronavirus pandemic, despite the state's public health ban on gatherings of more than 10 people. Now, please note that banning of gatherings of more than 10 people is not just the church. Not just a church. It's for all kinds of gatherings. It's not just, we're going to crush the church. We're going to crush the church. No. He was even arrested and charged with 6 misdemeanor counts of violating Governor John Bell Edwards' orders. Spell recently told TMZ, they say everybody's going to get it. Then if everybody's going to get it, let's get on with life. The pastor, who also claims his services cure cancer and HIV, said no dictator law should keep people from worshiping God. But despite the law and outcry, Spell plans to host an Easter Sunday service that's expected to draw more than 1,000 people. On Palm Sunday, when Louisiana had at least 13,000 cases of the virus with 477 deaths, Spell again held services, but he told worshipers they had nothing to fear but fear itself. All right, now again, that's just nonsense. That's just craziness. That's begging for confrontation. That's begging to make a point. That's not what the church should be doing. Now, I do think the mayor in Mississippi, maybe even the government in Louisiana, maybe they've gone too far. That's a whole different argument. The argument is a law is issued. No gatherings of more than 10 people. All right, well, our church has more than 10 people. We can't comply. All right, then we're not going to hold a live service. We're not going to hold a service with people in place. We're going to live stream. Now, if you want to drive up service, you have to figure out what the rules are and not allow. If your state government does not allow for a religious exception for people to come walking into the church at 1,000 in number, there's no way they're going to allow 1,000 in number. There's no way they're going to allow that. They're not going to allow anyone to do that. They're not allowing movie theaters to do that. They're not allowing restaurants to do that. They're not letting anyone. So why are you acting like that they're trying to destroy the church? This is not an attempt to destroy the church. It may be poor policy. It may be bad. If you want to even make the argument, it's not even a good idea medically. You could go with the theory that what we need is 80% of the population to get the virus, then recover from the virus, and then we will establish what's known as herd immunity, and then we can move on with our lives. So just let everyone get it. See how many people die, they die. The people who live, they live, and then we move on, and then people have herd immunity. You could go with that theory. Now you're getting into a medical argument. I'm just saying from a Christian standpoint, these kinds of things are not helping anybody. They're not helping anybody. And trying to act like that the government is out there to destroy the churches. Well, then why are they shutting down strip clubs? Why are they shutting down adult entertainment things that are happening? Why? Casinos, movie theaters, rock and rap concerts. Why are they going after Broadway? I bet you they hate musicals. I bet you they can't stand musicals. They probably saw Cats and were like, that's it. I hate musicals. Shut down Broadway. The end. I hate Cats. Cats is the worst thing. It disturbed me. It messed me up. Get the end of musicals. I am a tyrant. I hate it. Or is it government officials who have a very hard job trying to figure out what to do in the middle of a pandemic? That makes more sense than they're trying to crush the church. They're trying to crush the church. That's this. Sometimes I think Christians have a persecution complex. Sometimes I think they do. Hey, your business is shut down over there. Well, we're not worried about that because we're being persecuted. They're coming after us, man. They hate God. We can't do anything, even though I'm live on Christian radio and I can talk for 15 hours. And I can live stream church. I can do a 24-hour live stream church service where I just preach for 24 hours. But they hate us. They're trying to end us. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You see where I get frustrated a little bit with it. Now again, the mayor in Mississippi, I think, cuckoo, crazy. Cops, what are you doing? They're following orders. Yeah, but that whole thing could have been handled differently. I'm not going to go back through how they could have handled it. There's a number of ways. The one in Louisiana, he doesn't care what the rules are. Hey, I'm going to have 1,000 people. I'll go for 2,000. I don't care what you tell me. It just sounds like a rebellious teenager. That's what it sounds like. All right, here we go.
Folks, this is happening. This is happening. You can't stop the churches from having drive-in services if you're letting Wendy's have drive-up service. You can't stop the churches from having drive-in services if you're allowing Walmart to continue their pickup operation. You can't treat churches differently than anybody else. You cannot single out churches for a prohibition where everybody else is being allowed to gather.
Let me state it again. Let me state it for the 19,000th time. You can't deliver food via a live stream. And if you're going to make the argument, is this really what you want? Hey, you can't tell me that we can't do this if the grocery stores can. So you either shut down the grocery stores or you let us do that. No Christian should make any kind of argument that would even imply that you want grocery stores shut down. I want people to be able to get food. Call me a liberal. Call me a heretic. I want people to be able to get food. I do. I want people to, I want them to get food in any way possible. And I want businesses to stay open as much as possible so that people can be employed. Now, let's look at the church. All right. Are there things we cannot do via a live stream? You're absolutely right. I don't believe you can do communion via a live stream. I believe the church needs to come together and the ordinance is only distributed, only given out the elements of the ordinance of the Lord's Supper, bread and wine, bread and grape juice. However, we're not going to get into that whole discussion. Okay, that needs to happen within the church under the authority of the elders and pastor of the church, and then it's distributed that way. Now, I don't believe you can do that via a live stream. I don't believe people should be doing communion in their homes. I believe that's not the biblical idea. It's not the biblical mindset. Now, if you are under if you have a theological leaning, now this is where it becomes a problem. If your church teaches theologically that the Lord's Supper is to be conducted at every church service, and that it should be done every Lord's Day, no matter what, yeah, this becomes a problem. Now, that's an issue that we would have to get into. But other than that, the preaching, the proclamation, the teaching of God's word, I've seen churches doing live stream that they can bring up musical people to play music. We're using some pre-recorded hymns. We're using that. You can try to get the singing in. You can get the praying in. You can get the preaching in. And those are the basic elements. Now, the Lord's Supper does raise a question, and I struggle with how churches should handle that. Again, greatly depends on your theology. If your theology demands it every Sunday, that's a problem. If it doesn't demand it every Sunday, then you postpone it, and the second this is over, you have the Lord's Supper. In fact, you can have the Lord's Supper, if you don't typically do it every Sunday, after this is over, do it every Sunday for 6 weeks to make up for it. I mean, you can do things like that. So there's different things you can do. You could, I don't know. There's got to be some creative ways to pull this off. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is the grocery stores I'm tired of this argument that grocery stores, they're allowed to remain open, so the church should be able to remain open. It's not. No. Two different concepts here. Two different things going on. We don't want to take away food from people. Now, yes, I think again, drive-in church service. Now, if you want to draw a parallel, a drive-in movie theater. If a drive-in movie theater can be open, then a church should be able to have a drive-up service. That's fair. That's a good correlation. It's a good connection. I'm not going to go after grocery stores. Okay, I don't understand that argument. And the main argument he's been making is about Mississippi. You don't even need to make that argument because religious institutions are supposedly considered essential and they are exempt and they can conduct services. Okay, well then don't make the grocery store argument. Now in the other states, if religious institutions do not have an exemption, then don't make the grocery store argument. Make an argument that they should get an exemption. All right, but you want the grocery stores to remain open. No sane person should want them shut down. You want people to be able to get the things they need. Right? You do. I mean, how much can people actually stock up? They can stock up some, but not everyone has the ability to stock up that much. So they're going to have to go back. And considering we don't know how long we're stocking up for. So, yes. So, all right. There's a lot more I could say there, but I think I've tried to be as clear as I could there. Here we go.
Either your ignorance constitutionally or your lack of hospitality for the church is showing. One or the other. One or the other.
Please note, if you enforce a rule to the church, is a lack of hospitality to the church. Well, I guess a lack of hospitality to professional wrestling, to professional baseball, to professional basketball, to basically every professional sport. I guess they lack hospitality for that as well, right? I mean, again, you can't see what's happening to the church in a vacuum that ignores what's happening to the rest of the world. Public schools are shut down. Universities are shut down. Are you going to tell me education is not essential? Yeah, they say we've got to find a new way to deliver this essential service, education. We're going to find a new way to do it. So they've moved to online learning. Or you go up to the school and they give you all the lesson plans for a week or two for the children. Landon and Liam, who live at my house, okay, my grandchildren, we go to the school, they give us the little packet, and then we have a schedule, and then during a certain time they sit at the table, and we basically go back to how we homeschooled our kids, and so we're basically now homeschooling the grandkids, right? So that's an essential service. Education is essential. They shut it down. Well, are they trying to destroy the educational system? See, it's like when Christians talk, it's like they completely ignore what's happening all around the world. It's not just the church, people. It's everything. Everything's trying to figure it out. And do you want everything closed down, or are you glad that there are some exemptions being made? Now, maybe you should feel the church should be a part of that exemption. But come on. Let's not say, hey, shut that down too. If you're going to shut us down, shut everything down. Come on. Some things have to be open. Some things have to be open because they can't be delivered any other way. They can't be. I'm glad that I can pull up and get gas at the gas station, or I wouldn't be able to come out here and live stream. So I need some places open. All right. Okay, come on. All right, here we go.
$500 fines? The Wuhan virus came from China, but that doesn't mean we need to turn into China. So now you're going to have police rolling up, knocking on people's windows in their cars, handing out tickets because they're sitting in the parking lot listening to their pastor preach a sermon? This is crazy town.
While they could be sitting in their house listening to the pastor preach a sermon. Let's just make sure we keep that very clear. They're sitting in their car listening to the pastor preach. Well, they could be sitting on their couch listening to their pastor preach. Let's not get it twisted here. Let's keep it clear. What they're doing They could easily be accomplishing sitting, not even getting in their car, not even getting out in public, not having to get everyone out and then possibly have to stop at the convenience store or the gas station. No. Once you get people out, they're willing to stop in more locations. So you should stay at home at all costs unless you need to get out. So why make them get out for a church service? Just sit at home and listen. Now, again, I said if people don't have streaming devices and you want to open it up for those few people, those small number of people who don't have a mobile device or a smart device so that they can listen at home, okay, then tell them to come up to the church. But man, come on. Don't act like, well, they're just sitting in the parking lot listening to a sermon because there's no other way to hear a sermon in 2020. There's no other way. Remember, in 1918, during the swine flu, what were they told to do? Churches don't conduct services. How are people going to hear sermons? Read sermons that will be printed in the newspaper. They used the technology available to them there. That was in 1918. This is not a new liberal threat to destroy Christianity. Same thing happened in 1918, and it's probably happened in every pandemic where the pandemics that lead to these kinds of drastic social measures. Not all pandemics lead to these kinds of drastic social measures. We could talk about SARS and different things that have happened where you didn't have all of these issues, and there's always a debate why on some you do, why on some you don't. A lot of different medical reasons for this. But for this particular virus, it was determined to do this, just like the same thing was determined to happen in 1918. Remember, the city of Philadelphia did not follow. They did not take the showing up of the swine flu in Philadelphia, or the Spanish flu. I think I'm calling this. I think it's the Spanish flu. Let me make sure. I believe it's the Spanish flu of 1918. I think I'm calling it the swine flu. Wasn't the swine flu. It was the Spanish flu of 1918. Yes, Spanish flu of 1918. When it first showed up in Philadelphia, I think it was, 40 people, 70 people. Then they went ahead and had this big parade, 200,000 people. And guess what happened? Boom! It spread like wildfire, partially because of that parade. All right? So then next thing you know, they had to shut everything down. That included churches. But it did not include saloons. So just please note that this is the way it happens. So it's not a new thing. All right, here we go.
I talked yesterday about how the police state is encroaching. The father in Colorado was playing t-ball with his daughter in an empty park. The park was about 30 or 40 acres large, big. And the police arrested him. A friend of mine told me a story about his parents. They were tired of being inside. They went for a drive in California. The police pulled them over. Where are you going? We just needed to get out of the house. Y'all have to go back home because that's not an essential trip. Folks, this is what's happening. Man, I had so much other stuff to get to. But I'm telling you, there are wicked people that are seeking to target the church in this hour. They're seeking to take advantage, using the coronavirus as a cover to really express what they really feel in their hearts. And they really don't like churches gathering. So I'm just letting you know, what you need to look out for is whether or not in your neck of the woods are churches being treated differently from everybody else. And if so, those folks are violating the Constitution.
This is Franklin Graham. As news about the coronavirus seems to worsen, many people are feeling overwhelmed, anxious, even fearful. We want to help. At the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, we have a prayer line that's open 24/7. We have staff who would love to speak with you, pray with you. Remember, God loves you.
Call 1-888-388-2683. That's 1-888-388-2683. Or visit billygraham.org.
I need to break in here with some breaking news. The global death toll from coronavirus hits 100,000, according to Johns Hopkins University tally. And then here is more you need to know to understand the outbreak. This comes from AP News, breaking news. Again, 2 minutes ago, the global death toll from coronavirus hits 100,000. When I started my broadcast a couple of hours ago, we were at 97,000 death toll. Now it's at 100,000. 100,000 people have now died because of COVID-19, this coronavirus that is spread around the world. I want to make sure we understand that while we're sitting here arguing over what a church should or shouldn't do, 100,000 people have died. Now, if you remove all social distancing, remove all isolation, and you just everyone go about their business, that wouldn't be at 100,000. That is a fact. It would be way more than 100,000. So, what do we do? What precautions do we take? Now, I agree. How long does this go on? How long? What is going to be the economic consequences of this? There are major questions, and I understand the struggle. But we're trying to understand how to do this as a church. Now, he's going to some more of these commercials, but that's okay. We're using their audio, so we'll play their commercials, and then we'll come back and, this is getting ready to take an interesting turn here, and we're going to have a mobile device ready to do your own research. He's going to make two claims here that are very much a part of the, I call it the conspiratorial mindset. I think even his idea, wicked people are out there going after the church. Yeah, these wicked people. Yeah, they're not going after anything else. He gave examples, going after a person in the park. Now, I agree. I saw the video where the person was arrested in the park. It was insane. There was nobody around. And it was and the father gets arrested, and the cops are touching him. I don't believe the cops had any protective, like a mask or gloves. The whole thing is crazy. So there are some abuses going on, and we should speak out against them. There's no question about that. Again, the church, though, should conduct itself in a very careful way in how to handle this. But he's going to mention two other. So he's got I think a conspiratorial persecution complex mindset going on here that wicked people are out to destroy the church. Well, they're obviously going after all kinds of people. I'm more for saying the government may be overstepping its authority in a number of areas. It's not just targeted at the church. It's targeted at individuals, people all over the place. That may be a different way of stating it. He's going to name two other issues, all right? Here's the two issues. Are you ready? Issue number one, created in a Chinese bio lab, right, a bioweapons lab, right? Was the coronavirus created by the Chinese government in a bioweapons lab? That is a theory that is going around. He's going to claim he has proof of it. Now, this is on Christian radio. Now, remember what he said at the beginning? Pray. Let's get up in our sycamore tree and see Jesus. And the next thing you know, he's getting ready to take everyone down a rabbit trail to find out if the coronavirus was created in a bioweapons lab in China. Right? Second, listen to a phone call that's going to come in and see what they say and see what he says. And I'm going to show you how easily it is to disprove what he says with like a 2-second Google search. Right? In fact, I've already aired a program on the Theology Central podcast that disproves what he's going to say, because I aired a program where they talked to a rabbi, an imam from the Islamic faith, and a Christian talking about all of the disruptions to their faiths because of coronavirus and the restrictions being placed on them by different city and government officials. That was an imam within Islam, but he's gonna basically go along with this phone call and say something that's 100% not true. And this is what's happening on Christian radio. So we're going to go through all of this. Let's work our way through this.
How to acquire a vessel in holiness and honor, referring to a spouse, referring to a wife, referring to a husband. You know, what the world thinks is, well, what you need to do is you need to get out there, have a lot of sex until you find the one with whom you seem to be sexually compatible, and then that's the one to marry. God says that is not the way you go about it. We're supposed to be looking for a life partner.
Focal Point with Brian Fisher, weekdays at 1 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, we took the spices that we'd prepared and we went into the tomb. We found the stone rolled away from the tomb. When we went in, we didn't find the body of our Lord Jesus.
Who took him? Where is he?
Who took him?
Why do you look for the living among the dead?
Where's Jesus?
He's not here. He has risen.
Jesus was alive. He's alive.
Jesus was betrayed, abandoned, mocked, beaten, and then crucified on a cross for sinners like you and me. the Son of God was buried, and after 3 days, he rose from that grave. American Family Radio encourages you to rejoice in the glorious reality that our God is a living God.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes with news and commentary next.
My name is Dr. Andrew Fabich, and I teach microbiology here at Drew McConnell University. And so instead of trying to teach biology from this perspective that gives you this goo-to-you version of evolution, you get this perspective of this is who God is, this is who God has revealed himself to be, and he's revealed himself in nature, which is terribly exciting to study.
Hi, Todd Starnes here. Truett offers biblically centered degree programs. Check out truett.edu/Starnes. A Pennsylvania supermarket was forced to toss out more than $35,000 in groceries after a woman intentionally coughed on fresh produce. Joe Fasula, the co-owner of Garrity's Market in Hanover Township, said the woman was committing a very twisted prank. Police and the district attorney's office are investigating. They said they plan to pursue numerous charges against the woman. They do not believe she was infected with the virus. There have been a rash of incidents around the nation, teenagers coughing on people, licking food items, disgusting, and also criminal. The Justice Department said anyone who intentionally spreads the virus could be charged with terrorism. A memorandum obtained by my program indicates the virus meets the statutory definition of a biological agent. Faking a corona cough may be a joke to you, but to the Justice Department, it's no laughing matter. I'm Todd Starnes.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. We will open the phone.
Now I got to jump in right here because I always want to be fair. Again, he's getting ready to go into areas that I got major issues with. But I have said before, I said it in a part 1, I'll say it again in part 2. I listen to his radio program. I would challenge you to listen to it. If you don't want to listen to it on radio, subscribe to the podcast, The Hamilton Corner. I don't know if it's available on all podcast platforms. If you go to if you just do a search for The Hamilton Corner, American Family Radio, you can pull up their site, and I think it'll tell you where you can subscribe to it on podcast platforms. Listen to it. Again, I'm never the one to say don't listen to people who have a perspective different from mine, never have, never will. I always tell my church, I'll say, well, what about this book? Read it. Well, is it good? Read it. Should I read it? Read it. Is it bad? Read it. Is it heretical? Read it. Okay, read it. Listen to it. But think. Your ability to think and challenge what you hear. That's a part of I think spiritual growth is listening to things that we may disagree with and struggling with it. I don't agree with everything he has to say, but I think he does a good job here, doing a lot of good things, and we should listen to him. Now, I think he's getting ready to go into some areas here that is very unfortunate, and I hope someone pulls him aside and calls him out for some of this. But we will see. All right. Are you ready? Here we go. Let's go back.
Phone lines this segment. So if you'd like to join the program, the number to call is 888-589-8840. That number again is 888-589-8840. So far, we've talked about Zacchaeus recognizing his physical limitations. He was nevertheless determined to see Jesus. And what I'm suggesting is that we refuse to allow the coronavirus to obscure our view of Jesus. If you need to shut off the news, shut it off, man. Shut it off. We need to make sure that we maintain an unobscured view of Jesus. And secondarily, we waded into the erroneous constitutional violations from the mayor of Greenville, Mississippi. Now, I don't know the mayor of Greenville, so I don't want to impute malicious motivations to him. I believe that he's motivated by his desire to make sure that his constituents remain healthy. However, he's misguided in sending out the police to give $500 tickets to parishioners, many of whom are elderly, who are sitting in their own cars, distance apart, listening to the pastor preach on the radio. I forgot to add that part, that the pastor set it up to where he could preach from the pulpit inside the church building, and the parishioners in the parking lot can hear him preaching through their radios.
Now, I'm glad he came back and kind of said, well, I don't want to, give any malicious intent to the mayor. That's good, because there was that point there was like the evil people trying to destroy Christianity. I mean, come on. I think the mayor may have been overstepped his boundaries. But again, I want you to hear what the church was doing. You're sitting in the parking lot looking at what? Why are you you're sitting in the parking lot? You're not even seeing the pastor. The pastor was literally inside the church preaching, and they were listening to him on the radio. Why didn't you just live stream, for crying out loud? Why make people get in their cars, drive to the church to sit in a parking lot when they should just be able to listen to you at home? It makes no sense to me. Stay at home. Stay at home. Be safe. Look after one another, and I'll preach to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if you want. I'll bring a refrigerator up here to the church and a microwave, and I'll just sit here and eat and eat and eat and preach and preach and preach until I need sleep 4 or 5 days later. Now, my people don't want me to preach that much. And I bet most churches don't have people who want them to preach that much. But the point is we can. So, hey, we're going to have a drive-in service. But here's the thing. This is what I would love to know, and this is not being reported. Did they send someone out the door to go to car to get the offerings? If it did, I think it's money. I think it's money motivating drive-in services. I think it's money. I'm convinced. I could be completely wrong, but it just makes no sense. Hey, I'm going to church. What? We're going to sit in the car. And you're going to see no, we're not going to see the pastor. He's going to be inside. He's going to be inside, but you're going to sit in the car. Makes literally no sense. I don't get it. I don't get it. Again, I still think the mayor was wrong. Still think the cops were wrong. But it's just the whole thing doesn't make any sense. All right, but let's get into where he's getting ready to go here. Just listen carefully where this is getting ready to go.
That's what he did. And everybody in the parking lot got $500 tickets for that. That's just wrong, man. That's just wrong. I said it before. The virus came from China, but that isn't a reason to make America turn into China. And on that note, I have so many more things I want to get to. And you may actually want to weigh in on this. It's just been reported that the Japanese government has passed its own version of a stimulus package for its citizens. But here's the part that I found interesting. The Japanese government included 220 billion yen, that's 2.2 billion US dollars, for their companies to move their manufacturing outfits out of China. Yes, the Japanese government is paying their companies to take their manufacturing operations away from China. Now, that is significant in and of itself. But that significance is heightened when you realize that Japan's number one trade partner is China. This signifies that the world is looking at China with the duck face. It's like, I ain't rocking with y'all no more. I ain't rocking with y'all. Japan and many other countries, and just to be clear, countries were relocating their manufacturing away from China even before the coronavirus. Now, the world is starting to look at them like, you guys are terrible. Which, if you've been listening to this program, you know I've been beating that drum for quite some time. I think you will see many other countries, if they're smart, taking their manufacturing operations out of China as well. Many other companies from other countries. I've talked about the need for us to make sure our vital infrastructure and vital medications and other things are removed from China. I mean, it's absurd that 95% of the ingredients of the vital medications that we have in our country have been produced in China. I mean, are you kidding me, man? And this is something I'm not going to have time to delve into in great detail today, but I'll just throw this out there to make sure you come back next week, because I'm going to go into detail concerning the evidence for this. But did you know that there is more evidence and documentation, some of which came from the Chinese government itself, that showed that the Wuhan coronavirus not only originated in Wuhan, China, but more than likely from a biological lab in China?
Bum, 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 bum. There we have it. There you have it. On Christian radio, we now have this conspiracy idea thrown out that, hey, this virus was created in a lab in China. Now, I'm going to be more than happy to listen to his evidence. I will be more than happy. I'm always willing to consider any alternative theory to anything. I'm always willing. And I don't like, shutting down conspiracy theories, even though they sometimes bother me. Now, I do hate when Christians get caught up in this because remember his whole point at the beginning? We need to see Jesus. We need to turn off all the noise and we need to see Jesus. But he's going to get people right in the middle of the noise. Hey, this virus was created in a lab in China. Okay, well, that's just noise and speculation. And even if you could prove it, what are you going to do about it? We've got to focus on the spiritual aspect. But let me just show you how easy, what happens. So I just immediately, right before he got ready to say that, since I knew it was coming because I heard this in my car yesterday, I just grabbed my iPad and did a search about COVID-19, right? Here's what I find. Immediately, this was posted April 7th, 2020, right? So a couple of days ago. Is COVID-19 man-made or natural? New findings from the Scripps Research Institute confirm SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus has natural origins and was not made in a laboratory or artificial setting, as many have speculated. To reach the conclusion, the team analyzed public genome sequence data from SARS-CoV-2 released by China and identified several telltale signs suggesting COVID-19 is an organic virus. All right. Now, I know a lot of technical terms there, but they basically used information from China. Now, I don't know where else you're going to get information from because this is how conspiratorial thinking goes. But see, that information came from China. You can't trust China. Well, he's saying he's got information from China that says it was. So which is it? So since the virus was first reported, it's infected over 1.4 million, and all those numbers now are outdated. Okay. While there has been speculation that the virus was developed in laboratories and released either accidentally or as a form of bioterrorism, findings published in the journal Nature Medicine confirm COVID-19 is a product of natural evolution. The study was titled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2 and highlights the strong evidence for natural evolution. But comparing the available genome sequence of data for known coronavirus strains, we can firmly determine that SARS-CoV-2 originated through natural processes, says Christian Anderson, PhD, corresponding author on the paper and associate professor of immunology and microbiology at Scripps Research. So there you have it. Took me 3 seconds to look that up. Literally 3 seconds. But hey, disregard all of that because we got some guy on Christian radio. He's got some evidence. It's created in a lab. Yeah, that's what Alex Jones has been saying since December of 2019, definitely early January. He's been on this like from the word go, and he believes it's a real virus. He believes people are really dying. He's not doing his typical, it's all a hoax. But he believes it was created in a lab. Now you got Christians out there saying the same thing. And this is what Christians, this is what I'm saying. This is the kind of stuff the church, when you're running around saying this was created in a lab, or you're running around saying this is a hoax, and you're running around saying we don't need to worry about it because we're covered in the blood of Jesus, and all of the other crazy things Christians are saying, this is the thing the world looks at going, hey, if that's Christianity, I don't want any of it. You're whacked out of your heads. You're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Get away from me, you crazy people. That's not what we want the world to see. Look at those crazy people caught up in their conspiratorial thinking, probably think the moon landing was a hoax. Okay. All, and that we're all being ruled by, reptilian people and the Illuminati is controlling, blah, blah, all the conspiratorial thinking. And again, once you get into conspiratorial thinking, there's almost no help to get a person out of conspiratorial thinking because conspiratorial thinking is circular. Here's the conspiracy. The conspiracy is true. Why is the conspiracy conspiracy is true. Well, look at this anomaly. Look at this anomaly. You can't answer this question. That's not actual positive proof of a conspiracy, but they look at some questionable things. You become convinced of the conspiracy, and then any information that calls the conspiracy into question, you say that information comes from the people who are part of the conspiracy. Therefore, no information can disprove the conspiracy because all information that disproves the conspiracy is magically a part of the conspiracy. Therefore, you're trapped in a circle that you can't get out of. But this is on Christian radio. So next week on Christian radio, American Family Radio, there's going to be a Christian arguing that it's created in a lab. Now, I'll listen if he's got evidence that now I've got to go with his evidence versus the evidence of doctors who are writing peer-reviewed medical papers saying, hey, now this is of natural origin. We can see this. The data, we've sequenced the genome. Okay, listen, I guarantee the guy on Christian radio hasn't sequenced the genome. I don't think he's looked at it. No, so he's going to be based on where did he get his information from? But again, here's the thing. You can believe it was created in a lab. I can believe it was not created in a lab, and we can spend all of our time arguing. But guess what? Neither one of us are going to be able to ultimately prove our point because I can provide information. You'll say you don't believe that information. You can provide information. I can say I don't believe your information. So we don't get anywhere. So guess what we should do as Christians? Focus on doing our spiritual benefit, seeing Jesus as he started his whole program on. And now look where the rabbit trail he's going down. I mean, we're Alice in Wonderland hole. We're going down and we're never coming back up. These are the kinds of things the church is engaging in. And I've heard sermons preached that the virus, I've heard this preached from a whole pulpit. This virus was created so that they could make vaccines mandatory, and they're going to use the vaccines to reduce the population. So therefore, whenever the vaccine is issued, don't get it because they're going to use it to kill off people. Okay, well, cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. It's gone. It's over. It's over. The church stops being, and that's preached from a pulpit during a sermon. Yeah, that's what we need to be doing. All right, so let's finish this. Now we got a phone call that'll be coming in. Listen to this phone call, and I've got evidence here to disprove this phone call as well. Here we go.
Did you know that? Did you know that increasingly nations around the world are identifying the coronavirus as having a laboratory origin? Nations like the U.S., of course, Great Britain, Canada, Germany, Italy, and others are saying, this seems to have laboratory originations. And then you have video evidence that
I got to interrupt his conspiratorial thinking here about the evidence that this was a bioweapon. All right, I just got an email. And this email asked a very good question. I'm going to go with my experience based off the drive-in theater here in Abilene, Texas, that we have gone to a lot. Someone wrote in, I really think the radio frequency only works in some cases if you are in the parking lot. Totally guessing here. Perhaps in some cases it broadcasts on radio throughout town. But I'm wondering in some cases the frequency only works if you're close enough to the building. Yes. The way it would probably work is they have a low-powered FM transmitter. Very low-powered. And this is how it works at the movie theater here in Abilene, Texas. You go in, you buy your ticket, and they hand you a little piece of paper, right? And it'll give you like coming attractions. They'll give you the menu for the snack bar, and it'll say tune in to 98.4 FM. And then you tune in, and then you can hear the movie through your car's radio system. Now, as soon as you drive out of the movie theater, you get probably, you barely get out. And you lose the signal. I mean, it doesn't take very long. It only broadcasts close to the church. So the way it works, obviously for the drive-in service. Now, but here's the thing. You could be using the low frequency FM transmitter for people who don't have a smart device. But for everyone else who has a smart device, you could also be live streaming as well. You could accomplish both. You should be able to accomplish both. But yeah, that's probably how it works. I'm assuming it works the exact same way because typically people who are on the radio, like on Sunday mornings, though some churches do live radio broadcast their church services. Many, it's pre-recorded. When you hear that church service on your local radio station on a Sunday, you're hearing the last week's sermon next week. When we were on Christian radio, that's how it worked. Is people were bringing in tapes of their last week's sermon to air that Sunday. I didn't record our sermons to air on the Christian radio. I did my own program, which got me kicked off Christian radio. But yeah, I knew how that operated that way. So yeah, that's how it works. So that's why people would have to be there. But the issue is, if they don't have to be there if you're live streaming, and if they do have to be there, then let it be there just for the small number of people who, for some weird reason, don't have any ability to listen to anything. They don't have internet. Because even if they don't have a mobile device, I'm assuming they probably have a computer. I mean, I would think there's got to be a way that they could listen. There would have to be a way. I don't know. To me, the number would be so small, and you're probably dealing with elderly people who would not have a streaming device. You're really going to have them get in a car and drive to the church when they're the most at-risk people for getting out? Buy them a streaming device and bring it to their house and come to their house with a mask and set it up for them and go, this is what you do. Do something. Go to their house with a mask and hit play and then get out of the house until the sermon is over. Go back in and grab your device. I don't know. There's got to be a way to help the people that way. But yeah, so, all right. Good question. But now let's get back to his conspiratorial theory here.
Chinese government aired on its own Chinese propagandist networks in November, describing how they were testing a specific type of bat in a lab with these SARS COVID-2. This is crazy, man. This is crazy.
I do agree. It's crazy. Okay. I think I'm using crazy in a different way. Yeah, I agree, dude. It is crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay. And again, what he'll do, he's only going to provide the evidence that supports the conspiracy. He's not going to provide any of the evidence that contradicts said conspiracy. Now, I'm hoping he won't do it that way. I think, listen, was it created in a lab is a great question, and we should look at evidence. I am not saying I'm going to get all the conspiratorial people going crazy on me. The evidence, but you can't ignore all the evidence and saying, what are you talking about? It's got natural origin. We looked at the genome sequence. It's no. So, all right, here we go. Phone call's coming. The phone call's coming. Are you ready? Here we go.
I'll get into that. I'm going to run down some of the evidence for this, because I don't want you to just take my word for it, but there is documentary evidence supporting that not only did it start in Wuhan, in the Hubei province in China, but it has a laboratory origin. Don't that make you feel all warm and fuzzy? That's why I'm telling you, the world needs to look at China. I don't know how many of you guys had this experience, but growing up, when we used to go to my relative's house for like Thanksgiving dinner and things of that nature, the adults had the table. We called it the big table. All right. The children had the children's table. And the children's table often was not even a table. You had these little fold-out things that the children were allowed to sit in, and you bet not you bet not make your way to the big table, because I know some people may cringe at this, you might meet the backhand from Big Mama that'll let you know you've stepped out of line. The world needs to collectively sit China at the children's table. If you don't know now that China means the world no good, I don't know what to tell you. Last thing I'll say, and this is a shame, is a state representative in the Memphis, Tennessee area by the name of John DeBerry. He's been a lifelong Democrat. He's held office in the Memphis area for over 26 years. Spent 12 years as a committee chairman. But there's one small problem for him. He's pro-life. He also supports school vouchers for children. He believes that a child's education shouldn't be determined based on their zip code. Well, the local Democrat Party just removed him from the ballot as a Democratic candidate. Now, here's the thing. He served his constituents for 26 years. They continued to vote for him. Yet the local Democrat Party apparatus says he no longer reflects what it means to be a Democrat. Now, I just had a, because, it's the United States of America, the whole your voice, your vote kind of deal, right? If the constituents don't have any problem with him, why does the Democrat Party have such a problem with him? Oh, did I mention that he's also a minister? And he simply said, look, I don't believe in killing innocent children. And he even went on so far as to say this, quote, I choose my battles and I choose to give girls self-esteem, self-worth, to where they don't feel that their bodies are just a vessel for somebody to play with. That's what he said. That's what he said. So in spite of the fact that his constituents have routinely sent him back to serve as their representative, the Democrat Party has determined that Mr. DeBerry, State Representative DeBerry, does not reflect the values of what it means to be a Democrat. That ain't me making up anything. So they kicked the man out of their party. And he says, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. So much more to say. But I promise we get to the phone line, so let's do it. We'll start in Texas, where Vera is on the line. Vera, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program. Hey, Vera, would you turn your radio down, please? Because I heard a little bit of echo.
Okay.
If you ever call into a radio station, turn down the volume.
I'm wondering if our government has placed the same restrictions on the Muslim churches.
Vera, you're hitting hard here, Vera. As far as I know, I am unaware. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I am unaware of mosques being shut down in this fashion.
Now, this is where I almost wrecked my car. Someone calls into a Christian radio station going, I wonder if our government has placed the same restrictions on mosque, or she said Muslim churches, mosque, places of worship. Okay. All right. Whatever. Okay. As they have on churches. So here's the conspiracy. Our mean, bad government's going after churches, but those Muslims are getting away with murder. They get to go to church. We don't. And he starts laughing. Ooh, you're hitting hard. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. You don't know? You don't know? What are you talking about? You should immediately have stopped and said, let me do a search. Or you should say, I'm not going to answer this because I'm not sure. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. The restrictions have been no gatherings of this size, irregardless of what kind of gathering it is. It could be a party. It could be anything. You can't have a gathering that large. That includes all kinds of religious institutions as well, including Muslims. Now, let me give you first, go back and find my podcast that I did where I play the audio of a Jewish rabbi, an imam from the Islamic faith, and a Christian talking about of all the things that have happened to them and how services haven't been able to happen. The biggest issue for Muslims is what would be today, Friday prayer. That's a big deal for a mosque. They can't have it. Look what it only took me a couple of seconds to do a search. I ended up on Al Jazeera of all places, okay? Al Jazeera. I'm going to go all the way back to the top of this. Praying in time of COVID-19, how world's largest mosque adapted. All right. As mosque banned congregational prayers due to coronavirus, many set up live streaming to broadcast prayers and sermons. What? What? Muslims have to resort to live streaming? I bet you the government hates Islam. I bet you these evil tyrants are trying to destroy Islam. Wait. I know that's what we whine about. Here is Al Jazeera going, hey, what is mosque going to do? What is Islam going to do? And what have they resorted to? Live streaming. I can't believe it. It doesn't fit the conspiracy. And then look what they do. in this article, I'm saying, look, you can't look. This was published 6 April 2020. They got Mecca's Grand Mosque. Now, if you don't know, in Mecca, the Grand Mosque, where all of these people, worshipers, I'll just go through here. Worshipers have not been allowed to enter Mecca's Grand Mosque, nor the Prophet's Mosque, the two main mosques for Muslims, since Saudi authorities suspended prayers on March the 19th in an effort to combat the spread of the virus. That happens in Saudi Arabia, for crying out loud. They shut it down. All right. Now here, this mosque, if you've never seen it, it's black. The thing here in the middle. I'm not going to go through everything about this. We'll try to I'm not going to. It's called the Kaaba, I believe. It's a cube-shaped structure in the center of the Grand Mosque courtyard. I think it's called the Kaaba. I'm going with memory here, but they've got a picture here, and people walk around it. You've seen like hundreds of people walk around it. Guess what? It's empty. And this has been all over the news, showing that it was empty and no one could come here for pilgrimage. This is a main thing. All right. I think it's called the Hajj pilgrimage. I think it's what it's called, which every able-bodied Muslim must perform once in their lifetime. It will be held this year. It's supposed to be happening this year, and I don't think it's going to happen. Wait. That's in Saudi Arabia. All right. Now, continue. Jerusalem, okay, they got a picture of the mosque here. Muslim prayers, the Jerusalem mosque, have been suspended since March the 23rd. Turkey's Faith Mosque, they got here. You got the Grand Mosque in the UAE. That's a beautiful looking place if you've never seen it. The Grand Mosque in Iraq, okay. And then you have the National Mosque in Malaysia. And then you have East London Mosque. All these places are shut down. Oh, here it is, the Islamic Culture Center of New York. Yeah, the Islamic Culture Center of New York. If you don't know anything, the Islamic Culture Center of New York is one of the largest mosques in the United States. It banned all congregation, including Friday prayers, as well as weekly and weekend classes, according to its website. It's been shut down. But here on Christian radio, I don't know of any. I think you're right. You're hitting hard. You know they're going after church. They're not going after Muslims. This is on Christian radio. He's got a bazillion listeners. I've got 4. Give me a break. He's got a producer. He's got a staff. I don't have anybody. It's me, myself, and I producing my program. And I can do a Google search on an iPad. Yeah, this is the nonsense stated on Christian radio that turns us into a joke. We can't even get facts straight about that. Come on, man. This COVID-19 situation has uprooted everything. It's uprooted all kinds of religious institutions, all kinds of churches. Oh, they're only going after the Bible believers. I bet you them Jehovah Witnesses, I bet you they can go to church. Oh, I bet you those Mormons can go to church. I bet you those Muslims can go to church. I bet you those Buddhists can go. I bet you Hindus can go. I bet you Satanists can go. But not Christians, because the evil people want to destroy us. Oh, come on. Yeah, you can hear the anger in my voice.
It could just be that I'm unaware of it, and it's happening, but I sure haven't read any stories about it. And it's worth asking a question. And when you're evaluating whether or not churches are being singled out, let me be specific, Christian churches are being singled out for disparate treatment, that's one of the questions we should ask. Are mosques being shut down? Good question. We'll go next to
listen. Oh, and he stops there. You haven't seen any stories? They've talked about it on NPR. They've talked about it on PBS, BBC, Al Jazeera. It's been everywhere. He literally, his whole shtick is keeping up with the news. Well, I'm sure maybe you want to expand where you get your news from. You know, getting your news from Joe Bob in his mom's basement may not be the best place to get your news from. Yeah, I guess Catholics, they get to, because, Catholics, they're not, biblical Christians. So I bet you those Catholic churches, they haven't been shut. Oh yeah, they've been shut down too. Yeah. I can tell the government's there just going, okay, let's see. Let's go only after the Bible believers. That's the only ones we're going to go after. Look, if they shut down professional wrestling, they clearly don't have an agenda to go after just Bible-believing churches. And as a wrestling fan, it was sad to watch WrestleMania with no one there. Now, they did some unique things, and I could do a 5-hour review of it, but that would not be the goal here. The point is, it was crazy with no one present. And the UFC, they were trying to find a way. They were going to go to Native American property land and try to have a UFC pay-per-view, and that got shut down. So even the UFC couldn't find a way. They've gone after everything. Now, you may say them going after everything is going to do more damage and more harm in the long run than the virus was going to do, and that's a whole different argument. But this is crazy. Now, I did not hear the next phone call. There's only like a couple of minutes left. I'm going to play it. It could be nothing relevant, but here the reason I didn't hear it is I literally almost wrecked my car when I was listening, and I had to just turn it off. I started screaming and I just turned it off, and I'm like, I can't handle it. I can't handle Christian radio. I can't handle it. Okay, so yeah, now this is where when you make yourself you're that wrong, then everything else you said becomes questionable. All right. So here we go. Let's finish this up.
North Carolina, where Justin is on the line. Justin, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I was just thinking, in my area, we kind of had the same issue come up about meeting outside of church for especially Easter's coming up. And I was thinking maybe we could just meet in the parking lot of the Walmart. Or the Lowe's, because there's lots of cars there.
I like your thinking, Justin. I like your thinking. And you highlight the problem with this. So you can't have cars in a parking lot at a church, but cars are definitely in parking lots at Lowe's and Walmarts and, you name it. So should churches just take their drive-up services to the Walmart parking lot? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Thank you so much for your call and your comments. We'll go next to Oklahoma, where Sherry is on the line. Sherry, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for taking my call. My point of thinking is kind of screwed. You remember George Bush Sr. saying how the New World Order is going to become, or we are, and something to that effect, and that 1,000 points of light was going to shine.
I remember that.
Yep. Okay. I think that we are right now in the precursor to the birth pains of the New World Order, what he was speaking of.
The New World Order. Now, as a wrestling fan, the New World Order refers to a faction that was very popular in the 1990s, but we won't go with that. And the New World Order even got a flashback for that this year in WrestleMania, and they put John Cena in the New World Order. Okay, but that's the NWO. Okay, but that's a whole wrestling thing. But no, the New World Order, the ever-present New World Order that we're always in danger of. I remember in the 1990s. Listening to a Christian program called The Prophecy Club. If you want whacked out Christian conspiratorial thinking, look up The Prophecy Club. I think they're still around. They used to be on Christian radio. Insanity. And now at that time, I was still a relatively young Christian in the 1990s. So when I started listening to The Prophecy Club, there was a part of me that I thought, I was under the impression that Christians would always tell the truth on Christian radio. I was just naive. Hey, Christians, I can't trust anyone else, but when I turn on Christian radio, they care about truth. And man, there were times I would listen to the Prophecy Club thinking, it's over. They're coming to get me. They're going to make me get the number of the beast. I'm going to prison. I should get out of the military. We're going to be locked up. It's over. It's coming. It's coming. It's going to be here tomorrow. Well, I made it through the 90s. No new world order. No. I still have the right to go to church. All the things they warned me of didn't happen. 2000s. Made it 2000, 2010, nothing happened. I made it from 2010. Now here I am in 2020. Now, yeah, right now it does look like scary. And yeah, it does look like the government having maybe more authority than we would like. And it is some things that are troubling. And when we see some abuses, we need to use every legal recourse to fight against it. But there's a right way to do so. But what we need to do is keep it within the world of reality and not go into the world of hyperbole, exaggeration, a persecution complex, and whacked out conspiratorial thinking. That's what we need to do. So let's see what he says.
And this is just a dry test run to see how Christians are going to react and if they can tell us what to do.
Sherry, thank you for your call and your comments. I know there are a lot of people who share that sentiment. I do think in some ways that some of this stuff will be viewed and used as a trial balloon. It's been demonstrated that a part of the regressive strategy is to use chaos as the context in which to strip Americans specifically of freedom that in times of peace they know they would not be able to accomplish. We know for a fact.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
There it is. You know, we know for a fact that with regressives, no matter what the problems may be, their solution is always the same. More government, more expansive government, and a transnational.
We always know what the progressives want to do. I guess it must have been the progressives back in 1918 during the Spanish flu. Probably was progressives, who shut down churches. After probably what it was. Haven't heard any reference to the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Have you? No, haven't. No, you don't. Because you have to go back and look at what happens during some of those pandemics. You're like, well, some of these same things happened then. And we got our rights back. Now, yes, you always want to be on the lookout and be vigilant that our rights are being stripped away. We want to take a stand against it, absolutely. But again, there's a right way to stand. Churches aren't here to try to make a spectacle of ourselves and a grandstand and to try to get a persecution complex going on so that we get our 15 minutes of fame on YouTube.
Government all around the world. In the wake of the 2008 financial crises that we had in the United States of America, the UN at that time floated the idea of establishing a one world global currency. Did it then. You hear a lot of people right now saying, in order to rightly deal with COVID-19, we have to have a global response. We have to have a global response. And the thing is, even as the North Dakota governor and South Dakota, I have the story right here, have highlighted.
You do kind of need a global response, right? You've got to have everyone putting down restrictions. You got to sometimes deal with air travel. You got to deal with international travel. You do got to have everyone kind of working together to try to come up with a way, researching, getting information, getting correct medical data and what's happening, making sure, trying to come up with maybe a vaccine that would be universal that everyone could use. Yeah, there is a global aspect to it. Now, are you talking about a global takeover of all people's freedoms? So just because someone says a global response, you got to define what they mean by a global response. You got to have some kind of you got to have everyone working together to try to stop the spread of this thing so that people can get back to work and our lives can get back to normal. The faster we get rid of this, the faster we can get back to normal. The longer this lingers, the more financial damage and ruin is coming.
You're talking about the need for a global response. We don't need to have a uniform response even in the United States of America. South Dakota, I have it right here. The governor's name is Kristi Noem. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem has simply said, I'm not going to shut down my state following herd mentality. They don't have anywhere near the type of outbreak of the coronavirus in South Dakota as they have in New York. So why should South Dakota mimic everything that's being done in
Now that I agree with. If you got a state where there's basically nothing going on, then you shouldn't start shutting everything down. Now the problem is once it shows up and everything isn't shutting down, then it's going to start spreading like wildfire. So how long do you give it? Again, 1918 Spanish flu. It shows up in Philadelphia. I got the date when it shows up in Philadelphia. I think it shows up with 40 people, if I remember correctly. They'd go ahead with the parade where there's over 200,000 people. Boom! Spreads like wildfire. Right? So that's the problem. It shows up and you're like, it's only one case, 2 cases. We're good. Let's go ahead about our business. Next thing you know, it spreads everywhere. Now, do you take that risk? I understand that. So I do believe that there has to be, in some places, you don't have the same restrictions. But the problem in America is travel. People coming in, people coming out. The way it got here in Abilene, Texas, the way it got here is 2 individuals went to New York. Yeah, go to New York, a place where, you don't want to be going. They go to New York. They come back. They're supposed to self-isolate, self-quarantine themselves for 2 weeks. They don't follow the rules. They start going all over Abilene. And guess what? Now I think we're at 70, 80 cases. I don't know how many we've got now, 80, maybe up to close to 100 cases now in Abilene, Texas. Because 2 people didn't follow the rules. And we didn't have anything else shut down in the town because we didn't have any cases. So we thought we were perfectly okay. Well, 2 people travel, come back, bring it, and then they spread it halfway around Abilene. And now we're up to 80, 100 cases where at one point we had 0. We had none. We didn't even have a problem going on. And all it takes is 1 or 2 people who don't follow the rules. That's the problem. So that's just this basic pandemic 101. You study any pandemic, you learn these things.
New York. So if you see the variability or the variation even in the United States of America as a singular entity, how then can you say that we have to do identically the exact same things all around the world? But of course, people that already been globalist, who already are globalists, for them, and you get ready, you can cue it up again,
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
They never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And if you, like I do, take out your Bible and read, you know that there is a consistent effort that seeks to repeat what was once experienced at the Tower of Babel. And so this is something we just simply need to be aware of. And so there are a lot of people that agree with you. I think there are different variables to this, but there's no doubt about it. There are nefarious people in the world that want to establish a global hegemony, and the United States of America has been a continuous fly in that ointment. That is why these people cannot stand President Donald Trump, because he was a brake system for their high-speed trek towards transnationalism. Well, now it's been interrupted. What's going to happen in the future? God bless you all.
There you have it. No one can say I took anything he said out of context. No one can say I did some weird editing to make him sound like he said. I played the entire program. We spent over 2 hours on this. Here's what I will say. Churches are in a difficult situation. Okay, I'm going to try to just end with my own little commentary here. Here's what I would say. Churches are in a difficult situation. I feel bad for every pastor right now. I feel bad for every church. And every church is trying to figure this out the best they can. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I mean, tomorrow, Sunday is Resurrection Day. I don't like the term Easter, Resurrection Day. And that's obviously a significant day in the history of the church. Now, in a sense, every Sunday is Resurrection Day, because the reason we meet on the Lord's Day, I say it every time, our empty houses are a testimony that we believe in an empty tomb on Sunday. When people see that you're gone on Sunday, your house is empty, and you're at church, you're testifying to them that you believe the tomb was empty on Sunday. That's why we meet on Sunday. It's a testimony to the world that we believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's one of the key elements for worshiping on Sunday. It's a testimony of the resurrection. The tomb was empty, so my house is going to be empty on Sunday because I'm going to be at church. I understand that right now that's difficult, and a lot of Christians say, man, we should show up on Sunday. And I understand that. I don't even want to criticize pastors for wanting to do that if their motivation is right. But if the motivation is because we need an offering, if the motivation is because we need money, now I'm not so on your side. If your purpose is to show up so that you can grandstand and be a spectacle, and you're literally broadcasting it and making sure everyone knows that you're going to be having a service so that people from different states come driving in. Now I think you're being irresponsible and you're putting people's lives at risk. And I don't think that's godly in any way, shape, or form. We supposedly care about the sanctity of life. Isn't that what Christians always say? Sanctity of life. That's why we're pro-life. We don't want people to die. Well, then let's take our pro-life and sanctity of life mentality and apply it to this situation. We don't want to be responsible for the spread of a virus that can kill people. You may think that it's all overhyped, but it's killing people. It's killing people. We're at 100,000 people dead as of 20 minutes ago? Breaking news. That's people dying. So I think it is difficult for pastors, and I hate it. I wish I could give everyone an easy answer. I wish I could. I don't know. And how long do we not meet? I don't know. I don't have easy answers. I think we have to listen to the medical community, listen to our local and city officials and state officials, see what the law is, see if there are exemptions made, see how you can work within those exemptions. Whatever you try to do, try to just contact the local authorities and speak to them in a correct, normal way, respectful, and say, hey, what can you do? Here's what we want to do. How can we work together? What can we do? And at the same time, though, be using technology. It's Good Friday, right? Every church in America could have a Good Friday service tonight online. Could teach about the the crucifixion of Christ, the death of Christ. We could look at it from its practical implications. We could look at it from its theological. There's all things we could do tonight live on a live streaming. You could live stream all day Saturday. You could live stream all day Sunday. There's no one stopping you from doing that. So let's just try. Let's do this. This is what I'll say. Number one, let's avoid conspiratorial thinking. Number two, let's avoid a persecution complex where we see everything as an attack upon us when other people are facing some of the exact same restrictions and some of the exact same difficulties. All right. Three, let's not compare that what we do at church with people needing groceries. All right. We can deliver at least a good portion of what we do via live stream. I know it's not the ideal situation. I know it's not perfect. And I know it doesn't quite meet maybe the biblical standard, but at least we can at least do something. People can't get groceries via live stream. All right. I think that is important. All right. Another important thing is we should take advantage of every technological tool that we have and use it to the best of our ability. Use it for hours of teaching. Go all in. Go all in. And I think we need to do our best to work with local government, local authorities. If we believe they're overstepping a boundary and they're violating a rule, then we fight that as respectful and as in private as possible until we have to make it public. And then when we make it public, we let the world know that they're violating it, but we don't have to necessarily go grandstand and hold a church service so that people are getting arrested or that the pastor is getting arrested. What do you think is going to happen Sunday in Louisiana? What do you think is going to happen? Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Here's this pastor. He's letting the whole world know that they're having church. This is where he's been online bragging that people are driving in from other states. They're going to have 1,000 people in a building, and he's going to argue that they're taking all necessary precautions for social distancing. With 1,000 people? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. All right? I don't think so. So what's going to happen? Is this going to become where the police come in to a church? This is going to become some big spectacle. Pastor's going to get arrested. It's going to be all over YouTube. Is this just going to turn into are protesters going to show up in the parking lot? What's going to happen? It just seems to me that all you're doing is creating drama in the name of Christ. Then you're not bringing light. You're bringing confusion, and you're blurring the message. The world right now needs a message of hope. Just think about it. People are dying. People are scared. People are concerned about their livelihood. This is the time for the church to say, listen, let us give you hope. Jesus Christ defeated death. He rose on the third day. He died for your sins, was buried, and rose again so that you can have newness of life, that you can have a new life, eternal life, which is not only a quality of life, it's a quantity and a quality. It lasts for eternity, but it begins now. We begin to embrace and experience the quality of that life right now, an abundant life that we have with Jesus Christ. We need to give them a message of hope. We need to also give that hope to fellow Christians that yes, things are going to be difficult, but as a church, we're going to be there for one another and help one another, and we're going to work through this. This needs to be a positive time, not a time trying to thumb our nose at the authorities to try to prove some point. And I don't know what the law is in Louisiana. There may not even be an exception in Louisiana, so he may be clear violation of the law. Now, you may not disagree with the law, but I mean, like, I don't know. It's just we've got to avoid the conspiratorial thinking, the persecution complex, and we've got to avoid creating problems where we don't need to create problems. This is where we need to be spreading light. And there may come a time where churches do have to say, nope, sorry, we're not following this anymore. But we got to pick our battles carefully. We got to be. Here's the biblical idea. Be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove. All right, I'll stop right there because I've got almost another 2 hours. It's been a lot of information, a lot of commentary, a lot of discussion. Thanks for the emails for those. In fact, let me see if I have any more emails. Let me just look really quick. All right. We have over 50 cases in Abilene right now. I think I was saying 80. I just got an update literally while I checked. I got a notification. All right, here we go. Yeah, a couple more emails for people. I got some saying they disagree. They believe churches should violate all rules and meet. Here's what I would say to those emailing me saying that they disagree and they think churches should meet. Here's what I would say. You become a pastor and then you have your flock violate the rule. And then if people get sick and die, then you live with it. If you aren't responsible for the people, then you should just stop talking. It's always easy to be big and bad when the blood is not on your hands. All right. Remember, in South Korea and France, it was churches and religious gatherings that were very instrumental in the spread of the virus. So let's keep that in mind. We don't want to be responsible for that. We don't want to be looking like we don't want the neighbors to look at the church and go, man, they're putting us all at risk. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want them to know we love our neighbors. We love even our enemies, and we are going to do everything we can to ensure that you are protected as well as protecting everyone in the congregation. So, yeah, I get a lot of emails. No, you're a coward. You're submitting to an ungodly government. Well, guess what? Paul was telling the people of Rome to submit to an ungodly government. Okay, give me a break. Okay. Jesus wasn't telling the disciples to run around and ignore the authorities, violate the rules. No, he didn't. He wasn't. You don't see that anywhere in the New Testament, other than a couple of the one situation in Acts where they forbid them to preach in Jesus' name, and they're like, nope, we have to obey God rather than man. There's very few. There is a time to do that, but we got to think those situations through as carefully as possible. All right. Here's the thing. I don't know what's going to happen at your church on Easter. Please, though, try to be as supportive as you can to your pastor. Try to be as encouraging as you can. Please, when their church is live streaming, please tune in. Please tune into your church when it's live streaming. Listen, Christians who don't even tune into when their church is live streaming and then are going to complain that there's not a church service, give me a break. How many times do church members, I think it's hilarious, church members won't show up. Like, you'll have 400 on a Sunday morning, 100 on a Sunday night, and 20 on a Wednesday. But then they get mad when the government says you can't have church services. Come on. If you don't even show up for all the church services, stop whining about the government telling you to stop for a temporary period of time for a pandemic. Okay, I get sick and tired of all the Christians whining about it. I'm like, wait, your church, y'all canceled your Sunday evening service because enough people weren't showing up. But now you're whining? How about here's the, show up when your church has church. When your church has a church service, show up. Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. Okay. Now, those who show up all the time, yeah, it's got to be bothering. It's got to be troubling. And it is troubling. I think it's troubling to every pastor. It is troubling. And I said this from the very beginning. I do not like. It goes against my political leanings. Okay. My political leanings is far more libertarian than it is a Republican or or Democrat, but that's a whole different subject. But I don't like the government coming in saying, you can't do it. I don't like that. I do not. But also 22 years working in the medical world, I do know how pandemics spread. I know how viruses spread. And if you break off the contact where the virus can't go from one person to another person, the virus has nowhere to go. And then you stop the spread of it. I do understand that viruses spread all the time and you can't always shut down the world for every virus. I understand that as well. And I understand that there are devastating consequences to what is happening. There's multiple sides to these issues. So we just need to be gracious, careful, thoughtful, and main thing is just avoid lies, misrepresentations, conspiratorial thinking. That's what we need to be aware of. And when there are rules, like in the Mississippi situation, hey, the church has the ability to do what they're doing according to the governor. The mayor is the one overstepping the authority. Write a letter to the mayor, point out the facts, see if he's going to do something, contact the governor's office. Just do it that way. Don't make a spectacle. Don't get people in your church $500 tickets. Now, if push comes to shove and nobody will listen to you, then you may have to make that kind of point. Well, let's do it. Let's work with the authorities every way possible. Do everything we can to be in communication with them. Hey, we're on your side. We're not here to try to cause any trouble. Please understand this is difficult for us. Please understand, we want to, and I bet you there are universities right now wishing that they could, not have to shut everything down. I think there's businesses everywhere wishing that they weren't being affected by this. So, all right, we'll stop there. All right, email me if you have any other further comments or questions, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. This is basically 4 hours of live broadcasting today, and I didn't even get to anything I wanted to get to. What I really wanted to get to is about 2 a.m., I was doing some study, and has anyone ever heard that Barabbas, remember, who do you want, Barabbas or Jesus? Has anyone ever heard the idea that Barabbas, his actual, he had two parts to his name, that his name was actually Jesus Barabbas? And so what Pilate was really saying is, which Jesus do you want? Do you want this Jesus or that Jesus? Has anyone ever heard that? There seems to be some indication and some Greek manuscripts that may be the case. So I've got to unpack that. I was looking at a lot of Greek things, and I think the NIV even translates that text as, which Jesus do you want? Which again indicates at least there may be something there. I don't know. So I wanted to talk about that today, but it doesn't look like we're going to. So maybe I'll have to do that Sunday. We'll see. I may come back later tonight to do some live streaming, but I think I'm going to go home now and take a break after 4 hours of teaching. Doing any more live streaming right now would probably defeat the purpose. So I'll stop right there. Everyone have a great day. God bless.